I walked into the Levant Tech boardroom through the front doors this time. Not escorted, not summoned. The security badge clipped to my coat bore only one word beneath my name: owner. The room quieted as I stepped in. Cassandra stood at the far end, mid-presentation. Her voice faltered for a beat, then picked up, projecting calm. A new research division. She proposed cutting-edge robotics with high-speed deployment targets. The room nodded along. Familiar smiles. Corporate hunger. When she finished, all eyes shifted to me. I didn't raise my voice. We pivot, I said. No more rapid expansion. No more shortcuts. From today, this company centers data, integrity. If we can't trust our systems, no one will. A murmur. Surprise. Resistance without rebuttal. The door opened again. Magnus walked in, shoulders squared in practiced confidence. He extended a hand. I took it briefly. No smile. No words. Then I turned to the board. Effective today, I sign off on every major decision. This company is no longer built on my silence. What would you do if you suddenly inherited the power you'd been denied? That afternoon, I met Celine in the private garden at the back of the Levant family estate. It had changed little over the years. Still manicured, still quiet in a curated way. She sat on the stone bench, the sun washing silver through her dark hair. She handed me a cream-colored envelope without speaking. Inside was her handwriting, flowing but sharp. She wrote about regret, not an apology but admission. She hadn't fought for me. She confessed. She'd watched as they reshaped the company, erased my stake, filed me under non-essential. And she'd said nothing because it had been easier. I didn't expect forgiveness, she murmured as I folded the letter. Only that you'd know. I nodded, not as a gesture of closure, but acknowledgement. I didn't need you to say sorry, I told her. I needed the truth. Back in my office, I typed a memo addressed to the entire company. Internal ethics audit begins Monday. I didn't sign it as CEO. I signed it, Aria Levant. Ever waited decades, just for someone to admit they were wrong? By afternoon, the conference center downtown buzzed with journalists, developers, venture capitalists. The room glowed under industrial lights. My name was projected in bold serif type behind the podium. I stepped up. No cue cards. No script. They called silence weakness, I said. They were wrong. I revealed the new product, a secure AI platform built on the blueprint I had architected nearly a decade ago. The interface was clean, the protocols airtight. The audience leaned in. Then I announced the spin-off company, independent, female-led, rooted in etica lai. Applause started in pockets, then grew. From the corner of my eye, I saw her, Vanessa, center aisle, coat still on. Her posture said defeat, but her eyes still searched for an opening. I didn't acknowledge her. Then Nathan, lingering just off stage. His nod was stiff, ceremonial. His hands remained in his pockets. I met his gaze. I said nothing, then turned back to the crowd. My job was never revenge. My job was recognition. And now we build. Sometimes walking away isn't retreat. It's repositioning. That evening, I stood on the terrace rooftop of my building, the skyline of Austin casting soft glows against the coming dark. The wind was cooler now. Below, the city moved on without knowing what had just shifted above. I held the notebook Miriam had given me. I opened to the first page. Aria Levant, Code Architect, 2015. The ink hadn't faded. I closed it. pressed it to my chest for a moment, then whispered, "We begin now." The notebook rested on my lap as the car hummed toward Austin. I didn't open it again. I didn't need to. I knew what was inside. What mattered now was what came next. By mid-morning, I was at my desk. No team, no assistant, just me, 4 flash drives, and 2 mugs of coffee going cold beside an open window. The blinds clacked gently in the breeze. One by one, I plugged in the drives. Years of archived logs loaded onto my screen. Timestamps, version control, comment threads. There it was. Folder named Aria Levant 2016. Nested deep inside the original build. My code. My naming convention. My structure. Raw and untouched. A memory surfaced, Theo Ravel and I, hunched over a rickety table outside a campus cafe near UT. Laptop between us, greasy fries beside a tangle of wires. That was the day we cracked the predictive learning loop, the backbone of what would become Levant's flagship AI. They thought I'd forgotten. I hadn't. I pulled out the marriage prenup. Fine print. A clause tucked under legal jargon. A friendship clause. Nathan's legal leverage, granting him IP ownership of anything I created if it was under his exclusive supervision. That word, exclusive, it was a lock and a loophole. I dialed Evelyn Hartmann. I hadn't spoken to her in 3 years. I need to know if a transfer agreement in 2017 was ever filed. The one Nathan sent with my signature. There was a pause. Papers shuffled on her end. It was never filed, she said, because it was unsigned. Silence filled the line. I have it, she continued, and it's still blank where it matters. Then I'm not done, I replied. Have you ever found the part of your story someone erased and decided to rewrite it? My living room transformed into a war room. Legal documents scattered across the floor, highlighted phrases taped to the wall, sticky notes layered over every surface, row after row of printouts, clauses, arrows. I didn't pace. I sorted, calculated. Evelyn's voice came through the speaker. Will leverage IP Clause 7B. It grants you provisional injunction rights, long enough to freeze the AI transfers until a formal hearing. Will it hold? I asked. She paused. It will, but only if you don't flinch. At Levant Tech HQ, the narrative shifted fast. Damon, ever the golden boy, stood before the press with a grin as rehearsed as his title. Levant Tech will proceed with its IPO as scheduled. We're excited. Vanessa stood behind him, smiling with her teeth. At noon, I logged into the federal system with Rowan Hale at my side. My motion was time-stamped and server-locked, a digital hammer in a velvet box. Then I walked into the investor meeting. They didn't expect me, not as a suspended wife, but as a vendor. Good afternoon, I began, setting my folder on the table. I'm here representing the legal IP holder of your core AI. Murmurs, raised eyebrows. I clicked open the file on the projector. Code flow diagrams with my signature. Dated. Tracked. This system, without proper licensing, is interface only. It looks real, but underneath? Hollow. Would you fight quietly and legally or shout it out and hope someone listens? The next day, news hit the wire. Aria Levant under ethical review for code tampering. The headlines blared. Vanessa stood before a podium, her face pulled into a performance of concern. We must prioritize transparency and shareholder confidence, she said. Microphones thrust forward. Reporters barked questions. The room smelled of flashbulbs and spin. but I was already ahead. I had submitted audit logs to the Federal Registrar 3 hours earlier. Metadata showed the original code uploaded from my personal IP in 2016. Attached? Security logs time-stamped showing the same files accessed on Vanessa's terminal, 2 years after she left the company. Magnus Levant's face on the live stream was a portrait in erosion, stone cracking. Damon looked at his phone, then up, then nowhere. Vanessa paused, blinking, as Evelyn appeared on screen from a remote connection. "This board is now under temporary receivership," Evelyn read, "pending investigation into unauthorized use of intellectual property and misrepresentation to federal regulators." Boardroom silence fell like glass. In a world where data is the new gold, who really owns the story? The room emptied slowly. Chairs scraped. Papers shuffled. Nathan walked past me. He didn't speak, just nodded, like this wasn't the end, just a comma. I remained seated, alone beneath the dimming light, laptop open in front of me. I didn't touch it. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. Instead, I pulled out my phone and whispered, "Prepare next phase. Phoenix mode." Outside, the Austin skyline glowed behind my reflection. I breathed in, not relief, readiness. The glass walls reflected everything. My stillness, their discomfort, the shimmer of city lights clawing through the fog outside the boardroom. Nathan stood at the head of the table, hands folded like he was about to deliver the quarterly forecast. Instead, he cleared his throat. "Effective immediately, Aria Levant is suspended from her duties pending a review of professional conduct," he announced. The words fell, deliberate, practiced. I didn't blink. "She's become emotionally unstable. Disruptive to operations," he added. "This is not personal. It's about stability." Then he turned, inviting her in. "Vanessa." She walked in like she owned the oxygen in the room. Tailored navy suit, hair curled into strategic waves, a smile that said, "Miss me?" "Vanessa will serve as interim CTO while we evaluate structural needs moving forward." A few board members shifted. Someone coughed. Olivia avoided my gaze, eyes trained on her notes. Cassandra didn't bother with the pretense. She nodded slightly at Vanessa, as if welcoming a comrade home. "And Aria," Nathan said, "you'll issue a formal apology to Vanessa for your recent outburst." I said nothing. I looked at him, then at each face around the table. My silence weighed more than their discomfort. One breath, one nod. That's all I gave them. Have you ever watched someone erase you like you never mattered and stayed silent? It began in a one-bedroom apartment in Oakland. The first build was buggy slow, but it had heart. My hands wrote every line of the foundational AI code that built Levant Tech. Every pivot, every test cycle, every caffeine-drenched night. I gave up a full ride to MIT for Nathan's dream. For our dream. My parents told me love required sacrifice. Turns out it was just the first cut. Magnus, my father, helped us file the incorporation papers. "Trust the family," he said. "Let us protect you." So I did. Over time, contracts changed. Clauses evolved. I was told the prenups were just formalities, safeguards for the good of the marriage. One morning, over bitter coffee and a thicker silence, I found the updated charter. My name was gone from ownership, not reduced, erased. The final insult came in legalese, a revised will. Cassandra and Damon would inherit the family legacy. I was listed as not applicable, the inconvenient daughter. They thought love would make me stay silent. It did. Until tonight. Vanessa smiled like she was in a holiday commercial. Warm, false, nauseating. I come in peace, she said, glancing around. Let's refocus the company's energy. She'd leaked early prototypes to investor circles. Just enough to spark interest. Just enough to be seen as relevant again. Clever. She used a clause buried in an NDA I signed years ago, one we both knew was never intended for this. But legality doesn't care about intent. It only cares about loopholes. And she'd found hers. I noticed Cassandra glance at her again, another silent nod. The kind that says, we planned this. It wasn't just Nathan. It was everyone. Damon had his fingerprints on the asset reallocation. Olivia played the press. Even Celine, my mother, gave her usual quiet compliance. I wasn't watching a betrayal. I was watching a war plan unfold. You don't lose a war by being outnumbered. You lose it by being the only one who doesn't know a war has begun. The elevator smelled like wax and lemon. Miriam Ross stood at the end of the hall, mop in one hand, an old, dust-covered notebook in the other. She didn't speak, just offered it with the kind of look that holds time itself. You dropped this, she said softly, years ago. I took it. Inside sketches, concepts, diagrams of early IP flows. My pen, my handwriting, dates that predated the company's first funding round. One page in particular, dog-eared, smeared, annotated, held a system structure that would become the company's AI backbone. My signature, bottom right corner. Pen ink, not digital. She gave me a look, something between recognition and regret. Some truths don't get erased, she whispered. Have you ever had someone bury your truth only for it to dig its way back to you? I walked out. No folder, no bag, just the notebook. The wind hit harder on the street level. A black car pulled up, door already open. The driver didn't speak. Didn't need to. I slid in. My voice didn't crack. Didn't even rise. It's time.